Hello, friends. I'll be right with you. Get a backup rinse water here. Ready to go. All right. Hello. Good morning. Well, it's morning where I am. I don't know where you are. Thank you for joining me today. My name's Dan. This is DAA Adventure number 824. Watercolor. That's funny. I've been thinking I need to get a better quality clapper anyway. Thanks to Wright for buying this one for me. I think I'm going to replace it with a real clapper. I think that's what that's called anyway. There. You were there when it happened. The death of my original clapper. All right. So I am doing comps. As I said there in the YouTube definition, I believe the word comp is short for comprehensive, or helping the client comprehend. In the ad agency, in the ad business, they're called comps. They're storyboards and comps. They're closely related. So let me show you what I'm doing. Blinding you here for just a second. And I see it's strange. I seem to be getting a lot of static here today, but my power is not plugged in. Let me turn on my other monitor so I can hear it. Let's see if I really am getting static with just my... No. That is... Hang on just a second. Oh, wait. I bet I forgot to... No. That's just a second. Forgive me. Hang on. Okay. Let's try that now. Bear with me just a minute. I have all kinds of technical sillinesses that happened. Sorry for this. I'm trying to get rid of the static. Now, is that any better? Let's find out. Oh, forgive me, folks. Wow, that is disturbing deeply. I am so sorry. What normally causes that static is having my power plugged in. There is, however, no power plugged in to my phone at the moment. Again, bear with me for a moment. So there's the power on. You know what, you guys, I can't, I don't know if we can live with that or not. I guess we will. My deepest apologies for the noise there. I will try to clean up all my electronics before I start my next broadcast. But today I'm going to get going. All right. So let me tell you what I'm doing here. I have a commission job to paint a mural, quote unquote, in a business establishment. The mural is on a post. It's about 2 feet wide and 8 feet tall, roughly speaking. So I have, this is 4 sides of one pillar, and I have 2 comprehensive, the two comps. Forgive me, I've been painting already this morning and have paint all over my fingers. You know I'm a real artist when. Taking me a long time to get going here, isn't it? So first of all, a little background. Yesterday and the day before, I did a total of 33 sketches. There's a stack. These are separated into categories. Here's another stack and another one. Again, I don't need to show them to you, but I do want you to kind of have a realistic appraisal of what has happened up to this point. So 33 sketches, and this is, in a sense, my last two sketches. And I'm proposing two concepts to my client. This is for a band room. Hello, Barbara. Idea number one is to have a whole bunch of musical icons that feel like a city skyline, a city street going up to a city skyline. Some of it is somewhat abstract, so it's a real hodgepodge of, you know, like here, right here, there's just a drawing of a building. And down here is a building on the top with a chimney and a roof, but it's got speakers like an amplifier. Next to that is a keyboard. This is a kick drum with 16th notes going up the stairs and a guy dancing on the stairs. You might get a kick out of this one. Here's the Beatles walking across whatever street that is or walking across. Here's a Marshall amp. This is pretty much a drawing of an amp, except it's got windows down here. Musical stats here. Trombone, slide sticking up in the air, guitar, etc., etc. It's a real hodgepodge. So that's idea number one. Okay, varying degrees of abstraction. Idea number two is still musical instruments, but this time it's a nature scene. Guitars that turn into trees. At the top, branches come out and foliage and birds flying, and then a mountain stream tumbling down that is a music staff, little flowers of treble clef signs and bass clef, and some drumsticks going across the stream, and a drum down here, etc. Over here is a bunch of woodwinds, flute, recorder, penny whistle, clarinet, and guitar, harmonica. Here's an upright bass, some drums, trumpet, trombone, banjo, keyboard. Here's a keyboard, tenor sax, mic stand, flying V, Gibson guitar, another kick drum. So I'm going to send both of these to my client and hope that they like one of them a lot, because I certainly don't want to do a whole bunch more. So again, just to give you some idea, the hard work is what I talked about yesterday. The hardest work in the art business is sketches like this. So I did. It was work. There's just no way around it, in my opinion. It's kind of fun, but it's fun sort of the way I suppose maybe that playing chess is fun. And I don't play chess really for fun, but it's hard work. So that's part of the reason why I didn't broadcast much of that process yesterday, because I just wanted to focus. So I seriously considered doing all the color in Photoshop, but then decided no, I think I can work more quickly in watercolor. So that's my decision. I will certainly tweak these illustrations in watercolor still. It's pretty important, I think, for me to show color to my client, because my idea is for both of these illustrations to be quite colorful. I considered making them, at least one of them, at one point I thought about muted tones, and then just decided that was just not appropriate for a band room, a room, and it's going to be mostly, when I say band room, what that means in this case is like rock and roll band, pop rock band, not high school band. So more intense color seems more appropriate than subtle color. And a big part of my assignment here is to knock this out as quickly as possible. So what I'm doing today is very much the work of an illustrator. This is the kind of thing that I would do, that I did for years when I was a full-time illustrator. So as you can see, it's quite a bit different than fine arts painting. The assignment here is just knock this thing out, just get this thing done as quickly as possible. I don't have time. It's all one-handed, no two-handed painting. It's I don't care about interesting marks much. Does that make sense? So it's a different world than the world of fine art painting, which is what I'm normally doing on this channel. In the world of illustration, the picture is paramount over the abstract elements of design, whereas in the fine arts world, I believe it's the other way around. The abstract elements of design, line, shape, color, design value, texture, are more important than the picture. The picture is just an excuse for showing off all those abstract elements of design. Okay, but not so today. This is let me show you my, just since it's right here, here's my medium small watercolor kit. I mentioned the other day, the one that I bought I think in 1972. I was a freshman in college, in case you want to do the math. Why would you? Knock yourself out. Feel free. So the colorization, the coloring that I'm doing on these comps is not so much realistic as it is almost fantasy-like. So and the whole purpose of these comps is to communicate with my client the idea that I have in mind for their mural. Now this mural job also has the possibility, and I think it's likely, that there will be about an 8-foot section of the wall behind this column. The column's not in the exact middle of the room, but so to speak, speaking loosely, it's in the middle of the room. Okay, and it's very likely that they'll ask me to extend the mural, the theme, to the wall behind the pillar. I just realized I've got a lot of green down here, so I don't need to stop with just the tree green up there. So while I was doing the 33 sketches, and I mentioned this twice in the last couple of days, my main objective when I have to do comprehensive sketches like this, my main objective is just keep my pencil moving. Just try to draw, literally draw faster than I can think. Maybe everybody's not like me. I feel like that's probably good universal advice to anybody who's doing, rough sketches for a project. And of course, I can't mean that literally, to draw faster than you can think, but faster than your analytical, thoughty thought brain. Faster than your left brain linguistic side can keep up. Just keep the pencil moving, because surprise ideas are going to pop into your head, based on what your hand is producing, what your hand is scribbling. And then after 33 sketches, I decided, okay, now I'm just sort of, what's the word? Coming around the same mountain again and again, like redrawing the same concepts over and over. And then it was time to slow down, and that's when I did these sketches. After I slowed down, these sketches, maybe you can tell, were done first of all in pencil. So and a ruler measured out the edges, as you can see, very carefully, with a T-square and a triangle and so on, just like shop class back in the olden days, when people actually had shop class and learned drafting. And I think about that now, that's amazing. In public school, we had shop class. That's not surprising. I think there's still people who still do that. But we did traditional drafting, like drawing table, T-square and triangle, and we had to learn lettering, like shop class. And of course I loved it. Man, I was in hog heaven. But it's really surprises me now when I think about it, because most people are not, I was already a blooming, emerging artist by the time in 8th or 9th grade when I took shop class. But most people, of course, were not, so that would have been a very foreign. It was an elective, you didn't have to take it, but I would say in my school, most of the boys, that's back in the day, right? Most of the boys in my grade did take it. It was something most of us looked forward to. Of course, you were able to get in all kinds of mischief in shop class. It was a very different. It was sort of like PE, right? It was a very physical class, so it was not a sit on your butt and do the math kind of class. It was work with dangerous machines that can cut your fingers off kind of class. I bet they don't even allow kids to take shop anymore. Till what? Till what grade? the OSHA or something like that would say, what are you doing letting kids, 9th graders, goodness gracious, 9th grade boys, play with table saws, chop saws, drill presses? It's like some of the, maybe you've seen these articles on Facebook or something, put up there by baby boomers, talking about how amazing it is that we all survived, right? Remember? Because we rode bicycles without helmets, and we rode in cars without seatbelts. And always, I kind of get a kick out of those articles, because the only people who are reading them are in fact the people who did survive. The fact is, a lot of people didn't survive, but they're not here to read the article. They'll laugh at it. So, the rate of survival of automobile accidents, since I'm doing green, I'm gonna come over here. So, survival rates in car accidents, of course, have we're much more likely to survive a wreck now than we were in 1970 or 1960. Same thing with bicycle. But anyway, we like to think we were invincible. But anyway, there we were in shop class, and somehow all the boys in my class got out with all their fingers. I do remember that. I would have remembered if somebody had whacked off a finger. Now we might have whacked a finger with a hammer. I'm sure that happened, or scraped ourselves, or cut ourselves with a knife or a rasp or something. But I do know that nobody lost a finger in my shop class. That does not mean that somebody might not have, though. I'm sure there were lots of fingers lost across the country. Gruesome thought, eh? I am sorry, folks, about that bad static. If you were here at the beginning of my broadcast, I spent several minutes trying to track it down. It's not the normal source, so boy, I hope it's temporary. Whew. I'm going to reboot everything for my next broadcast. I'm very sorry about that. Hey, Barbara, your question many minutes ago, I don't know if you're still here. I will paint this in acrylic. And I'm going to give my clients, I think, 2 options. I could give them more, but I think probably too much more will just confuse them. I'm going to give them 2 options. By the way, down here is a Volkswagen with a surfboard on top of it, and a society lady walking her dog. And this is like a store window with a guitar in it, and the window says Les. And this is a copy of the logo from Les Paul Guitars. And so here's the Ludwig drum logo, Marshall logo. Over here is a Pig Nose logo, Pig Nose amp logo. These are all iconic items and images in the music world, pop rock music world. Oh, the static seems it was getting worse and it just got better. That is troubling. I'm so sorry. I'll change channels for my Bluetooth, whatever you call it, connectivity. Anyway, I'll do a number of things, and I'm so sorry about the noise that you're putting up with right now. All right. Now let's switch to some brownish stuff. By the way, I brought over here, this is a piece of scrap paper. This is Bristol board that I'm working on. Watercolor would work fine. Heavy duty drawing paper would do fine. But for some reason, yesterday when I was on this project, I just was in the mood to work on Bristol board. And this is a piece of scrap Bristol board in case I wanted to test a color. Turns out I haven't felt the need at all, so let's see. There, the noise came and the noise went. So the idea, this is the best one to zoom in on. The idea is that these are guitars growing out of the ground, and so the root kind of action coming up into the guitar, and then it's a pure guitar in the middle, but as it goes up here, it turns into trees. It's like a tree trunk. That's the idea. So one of my ideas is very urban city, and the other this idea is very nature natural. My guess is that there'll be quite the debate on the committee. That's just my guess. I'm probably throwing them into a, not a major, but a significant argument debate, because some people are going to want to go for nature, nature, nature. Other people are going to be more, I don't know, more pop, psychedelic, throwback to the old 60s, 70s rock and roll heyday of. So my guess is they're going to have a hard time deciding, which is, as long as they like one or the other, I'm fine. If they come back and don't like either one, then that will not be happy. I am being paid, by the way, for this work. In fact, they've already paid me for the comp stage, so I'm not doing this. This part of the work is not pro bono by any means, which is good, because again, painting, once this is all finished, going to the building and actually painting the logo will be quite simple in comparison to doing the sketches. As I said yesterday, this is the hardest work I think in the art. I'm not going to examine this movie. Somebody who carves marble, that's pretty hard. Anyway, doing sketches is the hardest mental work. Certainly there's lots physically more difficult, but my sleeve, I'll clean that part up later with some Mr. Magic, probably. I probably overdid it here on this one. The flute is okay, and here's a drum, more music staff, and a harmonica, that's good. But really, penny whistles and recorder and flute, it's unlikely that anybody will ever play a recorder in their rock band. Shh, don't tell them I said that. Shh. You have to take some artistic license, right? Right? Oh my goodness, I just mixed up a color that is absolutely horrid. Clean up that well. When I paint watercolor, I always have a tissue in my left hand. It's just part of standard equipment. Now this right here, and again, this is for only a guitar geek, a guitar head. What's the word I'm looking for? A tech head equipment. Anyway, that's the top of a Ovation guitar. And believe me, all the guitar players will go, "Oh, it's an Ovation." So I have an Ovation, a nondescript acoustic, but here's a Flying V guitar. Here's a Fender Strat, and so on. So these are just, I know how musicians are, because I are one. They will certainly notice what brand. That says SM58 all my microphones in these are Shure SM58s, and there's no question that the musicians will all recognize that fact. I don't know if they'll say anything, if they'll be impressed, but they'll just nod and say, yep, SM58s. They might, if I did some nondescript. Now, I did consider doing an old-fashioned like studio mic, but decided against it because, frankly, most of us musicians, we're not in a studio. We're playing on a stage. We're playing in a band. And the SM58 is the workhorse of in the microphone world. Has been for decades. Again, so I'm just bringing you non-musicians a little bit into the world of the wacky world of musicians. I have no idea what brand kick drum pedal that is, or what brand that drum is. Doesn't matter. So not everything is identified, but several things are. Right, here's a trombone pointing straight up, and I couldn't figure out how that could possibly be in a cityscape until I realized, oh, it could be sort of like an image, an element on the side of a building. So the whole building goes up here and down like that, and on the side of the building is this trombone shape. It might not be a good idea, but that's my idea. Okay. One distinct advantage about scanning. In other words, I'm not going to send these watercolor copies directly to my client. I'm going to scan them into my computer, and then I'm going to modify them in Photoshop. And of course, that gives me quite a bit of control. So there are things that I don't need to do here that speed up the watercolor process. For instance, I don't need to achieve 8, 9, 10 values, which is, as you maybe know, is a challenge in watercolor, right? To get the dark values typically means you need to either paint a lot slower or come back and reapply again and again, layer and layer, layer plus layer plus layer plus layer, to create that deep value. And with the help of Photoshop, I won't have to do that. So I'll also be using a whiteout pen on these illustrations. It will be one of the last, probably the last step in these renderings and illustrations. Will be a simple office supply whiteout pen. The two options I'm going to give my client for style of painting. I'm just going to propose, and again, they may not go with for either one of them, but what I'm going to propose, I'm going to give them two choices. One is sort of a hard edge, stylized, almost a Disney cartoon-like outline, very much like what these look like. That'll be one option. The other option will be essentially my painting style, so more loose, more a little bit more abstract, a little more painterly. I don't know if they'll go with those. Between you and me, I sort of expect them to go with the outline, feel. But you never know. Sometimes clients really do come back and surprise you. So you learn not to assume too much and stay flexible. I mean, for that matter, they might not like these ideas at all, in which case I'll again have to do the whole thing over again. I'm hopeful that will not happen. We're always hopeful that won't happen, aren't we? All right, hang on, folks, just a second. What's up?
Your decision on the rest of the trim.
You've got the sides, and
I dressed up the bottom so it's all level.
okay.
You need some more minutes up here?
Yeah, I don't want to waste your time either. Folks, I'm talking to Doug, my assistant, who's downstairs in the garage building a piece of equipment, and he needs my attention. So, I'm trying to decide whether to end this broadcast and start another one. No, I'll just pause this. So again, sorry about that. If somebody clicks on this, I'll leave a note right here that says I'll be back in 5 minutes. So hang on. All right. I'll take a break and be back in 5 minutes. Thanks. All right, I'm just about back here, folks. Are we on? There we go. All right, sorry about that break. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Back to quick watercolor comp. Again, comp, short for comprehend or comprehensive. I would like to know who made up that word. It's a word from the advertising business industry. Very, very common when I was a full-time illustrator. In fact, that was one of the most common things that I did as an illustrator was comps and storyboards. Closely related subject matter. Now, I am thinking that when it comes time to do this right here, by the way, is an anvil case. Musicians, bands, when they go to a place and set up all their equipment, almost all their equipment is in these very distinctive black cases with steel angle iron edges, corners. And again, very distinctive look with very particular kind of handle on them. And that's what I'm, again, any musician will recognize this instantly as an anvil case. That's just the way musicians are. They're the same as everybody else, right? They get a kick out of being proprietary. They get a kick out of being esoteric compared to the rest of the population. They enjoy having their own little inner secrets. That's the way all people are. A stack of drums here, and I think a stack of drums that culminate in a cone building piece of architectural element. I'm sure there's a name for it. What do you call a steeple-shaped thing? You know, cone-shaped. I'm sure there's a name for it. It's not called a cone, but anyway, that's what I'm calling it. So a stack of drums. And if I were a drummer, I would tell you what brand of drums these are. But I'm not, so I won't. But I'll tell you they're either Mapex or Ludwigs. Those are our two options. Mapex, made out of maple, or Ludwigs. And I already have the Ludwig logo right there. So that's a Ludwig drum. While I was doing these sketches, the final sketch here, I had my phone in my hand. This is late yesterday afternoon, early evening, and I was with my phone. I was continually looking up, upright bass, clarinet, all these instruments, so that I could get them more or less correct. There's another drum over here. I'll make it a purple-ish drum. I don't know which one of these two ideas I'm hoping that my client will go for. The good news is I think I'll be happy with either one. I won't be happy if they don't pick either one. But I feel like I'm giving them good ideas and good sketches. That's my job. Provide them with enough visual information that they can make a decision. I don't want to drag my sleeve through that, so I'm going to switch here. Let's do, there are a number of places in these sketches where I've got wooden instruments like upright bass, acoustic guitar, that are wood color. So let's, again, because I'm in a hurry, I try to do all of one color or another. This is a bad drawing right here. This is supposed to be a trumpet sort of pointing up and a trombone pointing up. I didn't worry about trying to render that very carefully, and now thinking maybe I should have rendered it more carefully than I did. Oh, I was going to say that when it comes time to to actually do the painting on the wall or on the pillar, as the case may be, I will probably give myself permission to incorporate last-minute creative ideas when I'm doing details. I'm assuming that I can get away with that. You know, like musical notation, anyway, all kinds of other little tricks that I can imagine myself thinking about while I'm standing right there doing the actual painting. And I will tell my client that. I'll say, so that they don't expect the mural, the finished mural, to be a photographic copy of my sketch. I will continue to employ my creativity, and I'm assuming that they'll be okay with that. Hang on a second. I forget what color a pig nose amp is. Yes, there really is such a thing as a pig nose amp. And I forget what color it is. So I'm over here on my computer hitting image. Okay, yeah. Neutral brown, tan, an assortment of colors. Actually, they're not all the same color, but brown will do. I think probably one of the things I'm going to do in Photoshop is bump up a lot of these colors so that it's a little more 60s psychedelic, to be blunt. A little bit more fun color, not quite so realistic. Okay, the color of my brush now is blonde wood. There's a lot of guitar parts that are natural wood color. So that's what I'm doing right now. This is the famous Flying V Gibson guitar. You knew that was famous, didn't you? That's just what you were going to say. Only if you're a rock musician. Fretboard on a Strat, Fender Strat, is often natural wood color. All right, now let's do some brass. And here's a saxophone kind of growing out of the ground. It has all these keys, of course. Whoops, I don't like that color very much. Let's change that. Brass, trombone, brass trumpet. Again, this stuff doesn't look very brassy at the moment. All the drumsticks that are, of course, natural wooden color, blonde wood. I think that's all there. Oh, the cymbals over here. I painted them gray and then said, wait a minute, cymbals are more likely to be brass. There we go. And a trombone right here. And there's a trumpet over here. Street light. Sheet music over here. What sheet music here too. Oh, and let's make this building. I'm going to turn it over so my hand doesn't rest on in wet paint. I had to work a lot harder at this sketch than the nature one. This one took it's a lot more abstract. It's crazy because there are pure musical instruments, sticking up in the sky. Like all of these are just, Ovation guitar, hi-hat, top of a upright bass. And right in the middle of it is just a plain building. I'm sorry, I was pointing up there. And likewise, here's a keyboard standing up. Here, anyway, it's just a real hodgepodge. It's got realistic building images completely interspersed without any explanation, with complete musical instrument images. So it's a real hodgepodge. It really is. I don't know. There's no way you can explain what's going on here. It's just a city made out of musical instruments, but it also has buildings in it. So I've got something down here that looks like a salt shaker. And I have no idea what it was supposed to be. I can't even remember what I was thinking. That's what you call intelligent art. I don't even know what it is. I can't read my own writing. Hey, wait a minute. Volkswagen here. Yeah, it's got to be yellow. I was thinking about red for a second, but no. Yellow is the iconic. I mean, white is really the most iconic. All of you are too young to remember the 60s and 70s. Kids sometimes would call them punch buggies. A Volkswagen is a punch buggy. And rambunctious teenagers and young adolescents as they were riding down the road, anytime they saw a punch buggy, it gave them permission to punch the person next to them before the other person saw it first and punched them. Aren't you sorry you missed the 70s? I just have a bunch of stuff that needs to be painted without worrying about whether there's anything else the same color as the other. Elsewhere in the drawing, this speaker is black. Again, so this speaker, it's a realistic drawing of a speaker, but it has a tin roof on it and a chimney going up the side. Again, there is no logical explanation for this stuff. Likewise, this keyboard standing on its side. Explain that. I can't. I have no idea. I don't have an idea. But when you squint, if I may, it's supposed to look like a city. Fair enough. That's all I can say. With a quick glance, it's supposed to look like a city. I have a dark greenish gray on my brush right now, and I'm just using it to darken in anything. Car windows, greenish gray, that's a good color for car windows. It's a good color for pavement down here, actually. I'll turn this into pavement too. Now, one thought I did have is, if these are painted on a pillar, really the edges should match up in some way. I did not give that a lot of thought when I was doing the sketch, which is unfortunate. Because I want the illustration to go around the corners of the post, the pillar, right? Of course I do. And that is not done yet, so it's a job yet to be, a detail yet to be executed. Okay, now I have a dark blue, dark gray blue on my brush, and that's a good color for just indicating reflection on chrome. And there's quite a bit of shiny stuff here. So this would be just shading in general, shadow, and chrome. and anything else that needs to be dark that isn't dark yet. I don't know if what I'm doing today is interesting or not. Judging by the number of comments, the answer is not. Not so interesting. That's all right. Sometimes my daily art adventure is truly, it's what needs to be done, but it's not all that exciting. It doesn't really hurt my feelings that much. But if you're watching and you want to leave a comment, please feel free to do so. Here's the Beatles walking across the road, and I think they're all wearing dark except for George Harrison in the front. He's wearing white, so I'll worry about that later. So ironically, now I have a guy dancing up the stairs over here. I don't know who that is. Nobody in the... I mean, Michael Jackson. I suppose I could have him dancing, couldn't I? But the instruments that I'm rendering here don't really lend themselves to who's that guy, that big dancer guy in the 50s? Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire, or who's the Dancing in the Rain guy? This looks like a Dancing in the Rain guy. What's his name? Anyway, but that doesn't fit. That would be jazz era, and all the instruments should be more jazzy. So there you go. Problems abound. What's a feller to do? I guess I'll paint in this Ludwig logo. By the way, I am not using a Winsor Newton Series 7 right now. Uncle 60 sent me a link the other day to a video, a documentary about the making of Winsor Newton Series 7s. And it was fascinating. In fact, so much so that I'm afraid to use my Winsor Newtons now. It's like, oh my goodness. And I'm surprised they don't cost $100 each. Well, some of them do. I have one Winsor Newton that's a, I don't know, $100 or $200 brush, but I inherited it. I didn't buy it. Fascinating. If I remember, I will post that link. You could probably just find it by Googling, going to YouTube and typing in Winsor Newton Series 7. But still, if I remember, I will post it on my community page, because it was really fascinating. And oh my goodness, as I said, now having watched it, I'm surprised they don't charge a whole lot more for them than they do. And I abuse mine horribly. I already knew that. Now I feel more guilty about it. I think I just made a decision. I will probably, well, before I do the white highlights, I'll probably come into these illustrations with a little marker, dark gray or black. And so what brand is this brush? Creative Mark. Number 6. Decent brush. Not bad. Kolinsky, real sable. Not a bad brush, made in Germany. Certainly not a Winsor Newton, but it's certainly good enough for this quality of work. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, okay, so it's a brand of brush called Winsor Newton. Of course, they make all kinds of stuff, but it's the Winsor Newton Series 7 watercolor brushes. And the reason they come up on my channel is because I strongly advocate buying one, or more than one, whatever, using one for your signature in oil paintings. It's a watercolor brush. Buy one, a number 0 or number 1, number 2, depending how big your paintings are, and use that for your signature. As you know, one of my pet peeves is signatures that people can't read. So, and part of the reason beginners, their signatures are lousy is because they're trying to use an oil painting brush for their signature, and that will not do, in my opinion. And my opinion is right in this regard. If you don't believe me, just ask me. I mean, you can do your signature, of course, any way you want to, but if you're a professional, if you want to become a professional, if you want to sell your artwork, then your signature is your number 1 business card. Far and away, it's your number 1 trademark, business mark, is your signature. And I am so convinced of this. Every time I walk into anywhere where there's some artwork hanging, especially if the artwork is pretty good. If the artwork is lousy, I don't care. Right? I don't care who did it very much. That's a little bit blunt. But if the artwork is good, then of course, just like you, I go, wow, that's pretty good. Who did that? And then my eye goes typically to the lower right-hand corner. And if I see a scribble down there that only God and somebody's mother can read, then I groaned, slapped my forehead and said, what an idiot. Whoever did that was an idiot. Because you want people to know who did your painting. If you're any good. If you're lousy, just keep doing what you're doing. All right, I'm getting into my signature rant, and I really didn't mean to. I've done it enough times. It'll come up again. Probably we're due for another signature rant in about 6 months. Again, here's my watercolor tray. I just sprayed it with water, reactivate stuff. I'm going to change brushes here just for a minute. Now this is a Winsor Newton Series 7, okay? The Winsor number 1, Series 7, finest sable, Winsor Newton, England. The Winsor Newton Series 7 was commissioned by Queen Victoria. They've been in manufacture then since, I forget, 1850, 60, 70, something like that. And the amount of, the degree of skill, hand skill required to make the brushes is just about boggles the mind. There's some I have to watch the video. I will watch the video again. It was so interesting. I want to watch it again. But they said something like there's only 9 people, something like that, that are at their highest level of, master brush maker. That's ridiculous. It takes like decades of apprenticeship before they're good enough. And they show videos of these, mostly women sitting at the table. They said because usually it's only women who have the deft touch. I don't think they use that word. That's the word I'm using. But only women have the deftness of touch to become master brush makers. Oh, here's a guitar right in the middle of everything. Has no color yet. I'm going to make it a mid-tone blue. Which, ironically, I don't think that's why I'm doing it, but I have a Fender Strat downstairs hanging on the wall. All my guitars hang on walls, by the way. I'm a pretty serious practicer. Life goes in seasons. I'm in a season for the last year or two of not practicing my guitar a whole bunch, which makes me kind of sad. But I've learned that life goes in seasons, and you just have to kind of roll with it. Now, unless you're a professional, then of course you can't say, "Oh, I'm not practicing these days." I'm in a season where I'm practicing very much on my trumpet, more than ever. Well, not more than ever, not more than when I was a student. When I was in high school, senior in high school, I played my trumpet 5 or 6 hours a day, and that's only astounding to those of you who have never been serious or lived with a serious musician. And then, likewise, in college, I started out as a music major, and switched in my junior year to art major. Probably one of the wiser decisions that I have made. I didn't know at the time whether it would be wise, but it turns out it was. But all through college, I still played in the bands, practiced every day. And yes, I was first chair in the concert band and lead trumpet in the jazz band. I didn't need to tell you that, really, did I? But that's just the sort of the nature of the family I grew up in. It was sort of expected. If you weren't first chair, you would practice your butt off till you were. And I was fine with that. I thought that was normal. It was normal at my house. Both of my parents were very gifted musicians. Both of them, especially my dad. I mean, Mom was a very good piano player, but Dad was sort of the musical prodigy, genius type, even though it wasn't not his career. Could have been, should have been, maybe. Anybody watching? Nope. Well, somebody is, but nobody's saying anything. It's just fine. You guys have all walked away to eat lunch, except for Monique in the Netherlands. She's gone to bed, probably. No, it's not bedtime yet, is it? She's eating supper. There we go. And I understand. You just leave your computer running and you walk away. That's what I would do if I was on. I'm assuming you guys cannot hear me, the echo of me about 20, 30 seconds later, right? I'm assuming you can't. Like when I'm quiet, can you hear myself repeated about 30 seconds later? Let me know if you can, because then I'll turn that monitor down. It serves a purpose, it really does. I actually have two sound monitors. One is an in-ear. I have a little in-ear earbud. It repeats I hear myself about 3 seconds later. And then I have an iPad off to my right here, in which I hear myself about 30 seconds later. So think about it. When I say something stupid, I have to listen to myself say it 3 times. Oh boy. The learning curve that is, when I started this Daily Art Adventure 3 years ago, I had no idea how steep, how long the learning curve would be. I'm still hopefully getting better at stuff, but you know, I bought my first microphone for $200 or $300 and languished along with it. Finally threw it out and bought a $700 microphone. I bought a $300 camera, as many of you know, and then suffered through many months of inadequacy, and then bought a $600 camera. Actually, they gave it to me after I'd bought 3 of the cheap ones. So that was very nice of them, and I appreciate it. Anyway, it has been quite the growth curve, is my point. And if I had known how growthy it was going to be, I'm not sure I would have launched into all this. But I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad it's all behind me now. I mean, a lot of it is. Anyway, and I'm explaining, why do I have a monitor in my ear? Why do I have 2 monitors? The answer is because it turns out I need them. All right, and the flying V over here is usually a blonde wood color. All right, getting down to near the end. Whew. For some reason, I have no idea why, I've got a flag flying on the top of that building, and another flag here on the top of this stack of drums. There's another flag down here. I have no idea what's on that flag, but it will be some kind of musical reference, you may be sure. I think, after much reflection, I think this keyboard will look better if it has a little bit of color on it instead of stark white. There we go. Okay, I'm going to do maybe just one more thing before I go to a marker, and then after that to a white out pen, correction pen, not an art product. I'll show you that. Okay, but the one thing I want to do before I do that is I want much of my green to be greener, yellower, greener, brighter. So just a little bit more color, especially on this woodland scene. Again, the last two steps before I go to Photoshop. And I won't show you, of course, my Photoshop process. I will not. I don't know if I'll ever do that or not. I think I've done it a little bit where you watch over my shoulder and look at my Macintosh monitor, right? That seems pretty bad broadcasting to me. So, but I will, indeed, I will post probably these finished images, just so those of you who suffered through watching this stuff can at least have the satisfaction, I'm not sure that's the word, of seeing the finished product. Oh, I know, I just got hit by an idea. With this woodland scene, I will want flowers, colorful flowers, and I haven't indicated that at all. Maybe I should do that with gouache. You know what? I probably should. All right. So I've got one more job ahead of me that I hadn't foreseen until a second ago. And the flowers will be musical notation, notes, rests, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the ticket. That'll make sense. I'll do the same little bit in this one. I felt like when I was doing this one, the cityscape, that it felt better, looked better if I included trees growing up in the midst of the city. And I think that was a good idea. It was a late add-on as I was furiously scribbling sketches. At one point I went, oh, wait a minute. There should be bushes in here. All right, now, I think I'm done with the watercolor somewhere around here. Yep, here we go. Again, a throwback to my old illustration career. I have hundreds of markers, and they're all in plastic. Okay, that's really dark, and that's a number, 80, no wonder. 80 French, no, warm gray. Warm gray 30, let's try this. There, that's more like what I'm looking for. And warm gray 50. I bet you these two will be just adequate. Yep. Oh, what the heck? I'll do a 72. There we go. All right, 30, 50, 70. Whoops. Come on, container. Let's hold it together. We don't want to bore these people by equipment malfunction. Here we go. Barrel Prismacolor. And now you see, again, the reason I have, this is exactly the same kind of paper as what I'm drawing on. Does that make sense? And I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to take all the lids off and hold them, I hope, in order from light to dark. Let me see. All right. Oh, that doesn't work because I want to start with the fat end. Here's a funny little tidbit of information, to, just insight into the world of illustration that I've referenced several times today. Back in the day, and I imagine this is still the case, comps and storyboards. So storyboards, you've probably heard of those. If you've ever watched a documentary about the making of some movie, right? The making of, say, The Lord of the Rings or something like that. That one of the things they will show you is how the movie studio hires artists to create sort of like a comic book frame by frame version of the movie. And that's the production company, then the camera people, when they're making the movie, they rely on these storyboards, they're called. They rely on them quite heavily for the production of the movie. And those storyboards and comps are traditionally done in markers, so much so that if a new ad agency called me up or contacted me, they would say to me, do you do marker comps? Because markers like this are in fact the standard tool for doing those comps and storyboards. And indeed, for many, many years, I obediently yielded to the tradition, and I did my comps and storyboards with felt tip markers like this, several different brands, so on and so forth. But late in my illustration journey, probably in the late 90s, maybe late 90s, I rebelled and started doing my marker comps, quote unquote, in watercolor. And surprisingly, never had an art director come back to me and say, "Wow, that's weird. You did comps in watercolor." It never happened. So, but it's very traditional. I mean, you can probably Google today. You can probably do a search for marker comps, and you'll find illustrators doing this kind of thing right here with markers, because it was so much the tradition. It was sort of an unspoken expectation that if you did comps and storyboards, that you were doing them in markers. Again, for some reason, late in my career, I found that I could do better and faster in watercolor than I could in the traditional marker. So that's sort of what you're seeing now. Now I am using marker as just a shorthand way of pushing all my dark values here. And again, the last thing I'm going to do will be white out. Moving right along. Okay, light, medium, and dark. Let's go with medium here. maybe you can see why doing this with a marker is slightly quicker. Sometimes slightly quicker than doing it with a watercolor. You can just slap it down really quickly. It might be kind of, what's the word, cheesy or something strange that the only, well, I have three figures, three human beings, four, guy dancing up the stairs, the Beatles walking across the street, a woman in a mini skirt, red skirt, walking a dog, and a man driving the Volkswagen with a surfboard on the top. All of those elements are my personal decision. You could maybe tell that you could tell how old I am, right? By the motifs, the images I've decided to include in the illustration. I also have a hunch, though, that the people that I'm working for are roughly my age, give or take 15 years. That's a wide range, isn't it? Anyway, I'm trusting that all you young people know who the Beatles are. And then, yeah, but why didn't you do, you name it. Why didn't you do somebody else? Why didn't you do, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank, some current musician. Well, maybe I could have, should have, would have. Maybe I should. Maybe they'll come back and say, oh, no, we don't want the Beatles. They're too old. Let's do, I'm not even gonna say a name because I'll just get myself in trouble. Bruno Mars, And he's not new, but he's new compared to the Beatles, right? Okay, so I did it. I named the name. I threw caution to the wind. I'm proud of myself for knowing who it is. I don't follow pop music, by the way. I'm one of those strange people. I don't watch normal TV. I don't watch sitcoms. I was talking to somebody the other day and trying to describe how weird I am. Like, name any famous sitcom in the last 30 years. And then ask me if I ever watched it. And the answer, Friends. I don't know. I say I'm in trouble already. MASH. I did watch some MASH way back when I was young. But it's been just about that long since I don't watch sitcoms. And I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm being an elitist snob. Maybe I am, but we'll see what I'm trying to say. I'm just this weird guy. I don't listen to pop music very much. Nothing against it, just don't much. All right, so here's my whiteout. This, in case you care, this is the best brand for a correction pen. It comes out the easiest. It's the right shape. All the others are difficult. Just take my word for it, or don't. whichever you want to do. Don't take my word for it if you're not in the mood. Somebody left any comments lately? Oh yeah, a little bit. Hello, Nancy. And Tempt-Draven. Oh, good. Okay, no echo. Thank you for letting me know. Thanks for speaking up, Tempt-Draven. I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I know I'm reading it. Tempted Raven. That's great. Tempted Raven. What a great name. I don't know what it means, but it's cool. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, it does make it pop, doesn't it? And then the whiteout will make it pop even more. Pop is a good word when it comes to reading comps and storyboards. Oh, I have another tool here. I might use. It's a Pentel. Oh, Mitsubishi Pencil Company. Huh, how about that? It's all written in Japanese. I almost said Chinese, but if it's Mitsubishi, oh, does it work now? Nope, doesn't work. I have. Oh, here's for what it's worth. Here's another whiteout pen, and it's just more awkward. Now, this is a short one, of course, but anyway, trust me, this is the best one. All right. Or don't trust me if you don't want to. We've already been through all that. Yeah, pop is a good word. I want it to read. You know, I don't want them to have to scrunch up their nose and slide up their glasses and analyze real carefully to see what's happening here. Does that make sense? I want them to be able to glance at it, boom, capture the idea in a few seconds. And yet, if they do take time, as I'm sure some will, and it's more of a personality thing than anything, some people are given to looking at things carefully, and other people just are not. They have other giftings, other giftedness. Anyway, I want it to be, it's called an easy read. In fact, that is, I would actually, back in the day when I was an illustrator and I did storyboards in particular, that was a common feedback that I would get from my clients is my storyboards were a little bit too detailed and fine, and they would rather have just a real quick read. So I would switch to blunter tools, and then those clients, and it was part of my job as an illustrator to know which art directors preferred what they preferred. You know, some really liked the detail, others did not. And as an illustrator, it was my job to remember who was who and to treat them to do the kind of work that they preferred. All part of being, and of course that set me up quite well for being a fine artist and doing commissions, because when you do commissions, you're doing the same kind of thing. You're working for somebody else. It's always a little bit more stressful. Yes, it is, because you're trying to predict what they want. And of course, that's exactly what I'm doing here with this whole job, is I'm trying to guess. This logo, and again, yesterday when I was doing the sketches, I looked up on my phone more than once the Marshall logo. That's very, very distinctive. Most musicians will recognize, even though that's very abstract, most of my fellow musicians will actually recognize that as a Marshall amp. Again, it's just classic amp in the pop rock world. It's a clarinet standing up, which kind of makes me laugh, because I bet there will never be a clarinet in this band. But most clarinet players, most saxophone players double on, and started out on a clarinet. So they'll be able to relate to it, even though they might get a laugh out of the fact that I've got a clarinet. I hope they're not going to come back to me and say, and want, accurate instrumentation. Like, take out the trumpet, take out the, whatever it may be. I hope not. I hope that they'll go with a more artsy, creative expression. Some of the instruments are here simply because they look cool, not because they're necessarily accurate to the rock and roll culture. But as we all know, the boss is the boss, so they're paying the bill, so they get quite a bit of leeway. There, that kind of looks like a stack of drums, don't you think? Finally looks like a stack of drums. And here's a pig nose amp. Funny name. All right, I think I'm done with that one. There's a lot more I could do. But is it good enough? I'm hoping that it is. All right, so let's go to the other one. And this is the one that I thought I might. In fact, yeah, let's just bite the bullet and do it. Speaking of biting bullets, I can't find where oh, here it is. Have no idea what it has to do with biting bullets, but I couldn't find the lid to my correction pen, but I found it. All right, and way over here is my gouache or gouache. Did I tell you? For a long time, for years and years, back when I was a young man, I didn't buy gouache paints because I didn't know how to pronounce the word. Now, once I realized that was the reason I wasn't buying the gouache paints, then I got over my bad self and bought them. But I discovered, oh, you know what? The reason I never buy those paints is because I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that word right there. So it is gouache for anybody who wants to know, like I did. Gouache. Gouache, gouache, gouache. Anyway, gouache is the official pronunciation. Rather unfortunate name when you think about it. All right, so that's my gouache. Oh, I think I want to, after all that, I think I want a smaller brush. Bear with me just a second. Picking up the precious Winsor Newton Series 7. And my thinking is that I can do down here, I can do notation of all sorts. Ooh, that's a good color actually for the saxophone. Hang on, so time out to do some saxophone color. A quarter rest, an eighth rest, as if they're flowers out here out in the woods. Does that make sense? An eighth rest. I've already got down here some treble clef signs. Not treble clef, treble. Okay, and I'm just going to dot this stuff now. Oh, here's a sharp mark, a flat mark. All right, good enough. Now, back to the whiteout. Reflections are very important when you're trying to quickly indicate shiny stuff. I guess that's kind kind of obvious, isn't it? You know, one of the fun tangents of my career in the last 10, 15 years has been every once in a while I'll do automotive artwork, paintings of cars. And then I got into fire trucks, and I've done quite a number of fire truck paintings, and enjoy it immensely. And again, that when I'm in the mood to do some realism, one of my favorite subjects then is cars, or because of the shiny stuff. And periodically, an art student will say to me, or early journey painter will say, "Wow, I have a hard time with chrome. How do you do chrome?" or something like that, you know. And the problem with such a question is that the artist is using the word chrome inside their brain, and that is what is messing them up. The word chrome shouldn't really appear in their artist brain. How do you paint chrome? The answer is you paint what you see, and using the word often obliterates what you're trying to look at. It's hard to, because anyway, painting chrome is, if you have a photograph, painting chrome is really, really easy. All you do is copy the photograph. Same thing when you're painting shiny objects. Now, that is not what funny, I should talk about that right now, because that's precisely not what I'm doing right now. I'm drawing out of my head completely. I'm not looking at anything, right? So that was not good timing. Because what I'm doing right now is actually not an example of painting what you're looking at. That's all right, though. There were no casualties, were there? I think you guys are all okay. You knew what I was talking about. My idea here is that this is like a mountain stream cascading down the hillside, and yet it's actually a musical staff. That came to me when I was doing my sketches. Again, it was probably a surprise. Like, oh, wait, that should be a musical staff. Oh yeah, because at first it was, I remember now, it was a saxophone. The stream was like a melted saxophone coming down the hill. That didn't work nearly as well as the musical notation. So, isn't that a neat tool? The whiteout really, really adds a lot of pop. I often use this whiteout in my watercolor sketches. Not comps or storyboards, I mean just regular sketches. Which is pretty nervy of me to use a non-art product. I think the archival quality of these things is quite good. I can't prove that, but I think they're fairly stable. All right, you guys, I'm going to declare myself finished. Thank you, Richard. And Paulus Mobus. Good. Agrees with me not being able to. And do you all understand that these are four sides of a pillar? This is a proposal to a company. I'm going to do a mural, and in a room where they're playing music. So that's. I don't know if you caught that part of the broadcast or not. So these are comprehensive help to help the client capture the idea that I have. Which one do you like better, the cityscape or the countryscape? Anybody want to vote? Richard, funny you should say that. No, I haven't talked about that much. But just yesterday, one of my co-YouTubers, Mark Carder, C-A-R-D-E, D as in dog, Carder, C-A-R-D-E-R. You can Google him. Mark Carder published a YouTube yesterday, I think, where he talks about studio issues and how not to handicap yourself by doing bad things. And he talks about lighting a little bit. And then he has a link. He has a whole video where he talks about studio lighting. So I would refer you to him. Yeah, I just decided to show you a little bit. This might be instructive for somebody out there. In watercolor, how to fix mistakes like this. So I want to get rid of that. So I've put masking tape down, and here's the secret weapon. It is Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, I think. I dipped it in water, a little bit too much water. Let me bring some more out. And then just rub it, sort of like an eraser. And look what a great job that did. And usually, if you're careful, it won't bleed under the. Isn't that great? So I think that's a. I'm impressed with that. I learned that from my good friend David Stickle, who does outrageous watercolor work. Okay, while I'm at it, let's clean up one more bit, shall we? Right down here. Yeah, David Stickle. Oh, but back to the question at hand on lighting. I will do a broadcast on that. I'll come on it sometime. Do be aware, do be conscious of color balance. The lights that I have on me right now are both LED. They're not color corrected, but they're daylight. You know, they're not expensive art light bulbs per se. You know, bought them at the hardware store, but they work quite well. And so on. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Thanks again, you guys, for watching. And I'll post these little images on my community page, right? Richard, you saw Mark's, did you? Well, I agree with what he said. Although, as I said, I don't feel compelled to go out and buy really expensive light bulbs. Oh, I do have a thought here. This is worth mentioning, because a lot of real snobby artists will say that you absolutely must buy color corrected light bulbs. I forget what the 5500 Kelvin. I forget what the number is, but there's some, and you get to be a snob if you have the right light bulbs. Keep this in mind. Let me since I'm going to talk to you guys here, let me move you here. Hang on, I'm going to again move you around a bunch more. Keep this in mind that yeah, you might be a snobby, sophisticated artist, and you insist you only use the best 5500 Kelvin or whatever the number is. Yeah, but people are going to buy your painting and they're going to hang it in their house. The number of people that are going to go out and invest in a 5500, if that's the right number, I don't remember, Kelvin bulb to hang over your painting is like 1 out of 10,000. It's just not going to happen. So remember, most people are going to hang your painting in their house with a mixture of light. So keep that in mind. So when I paint, I do not use 5500 Kelvin, if that's the right number, daylight. I use a mixture of daylight and incandescent or warmer, even if they're LEDs, because I feel like that's closer to what the people who buy my paintings, they're not going to have pure light. So just for what it's worth. All right, thanks for watching. I hope to broadcast again later today. I will be working on this painting that I started 2 nights ago. Can't wait to get back to it. But this comp job had to be done, so now it's done. Yahoo! Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.